In new business, anybody got anything that they when they had to do business or anything this morning? And when we get started with new business, and the first thing I have new business is Parks and Rec Commission request to apply for a historical grant for Vanderbilt Park. Are you presenting that, Mark?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mike was supposed to be here, but I think maybe he had a flat tire. There's what's called the America 250 Michigan. The Michigan is MI and history grant. And we're applying, we want to apply for the tier 1, which is $5,000 and have signage, historical signage at the park. And basically, America 250 Michigan is a commemoration of the independence of the United States, which in 2026 will be 250 years. So there's two times you can apply for the grant. Now it's April the 15th is the deadline, and there's one in the fall too. And I wrote up the questions for the grant, and there are 23 questions. And I think that came out quite well. I don't know if you got a copy of it or not, but I can leave a copy here with you if you want to have it available, or else I can email it to you. But the signage is going to be 3 sides. It's just like the Cass River Greenways sign that they have along the Cass River, for launches and stuff like that at Vassar and Bridgeport and Frankenmuth. So it's going to be 3 sides, and I'm the historian, so I wanted to put one side early history, and that would be like maybe glaciation or something, and then Pays Plat. The school of town, the Thumb of Michigan, was called by the French Pays Plat, and that means the flat country in French. And later on, it was called Dussacomiga by the Chippewa, which means flat country. And the name Tuscola comes from Dussacomiga in Latin cola, which means flat cultivated country. So it's very descriptive of our land, particularly up there by Quantico. So I'm going to get into the Native American heritage a little bit on the first side, and the meaning of the name Quantico. And actually, it was originally Macquantico. Macqua means bear, so it was the Bear River. And then Quantico is actually probably means the Ladies Creek. And they got mixed up a lot between what was what as far as when European Americans came. But the Bear River got to be Quantico. And the Quantico basically was composed of the Boigany, which was the rice gathering place. So I'm going to have a little big net or whatever on the rice gathering up there. And then also on fishermen, the Native American fishermen, and a wigwam, talking about the wigwam. Side 2 is going to be voyagers. This is just what I've planned right now. Side 2 is voyagers and traders. The French voyagers, like Barthé, and that was up to 1760. And then the British and American traders, which was after 1760. And I don't know if you know these names, Graverod, Riley, Campeau, Crumley, Williams Brothers would be some of those that would be connected with Quantico and the park, Vanderbilt Park. And then the third side would be early settlers and also hotel and retreat keepers. And the Tremblays own it. They were traders, but the descendant owned it. And it was called Spencer's Grove at one time. Grove a long time ago meant a park. So it was Spencer's Grove, and then Gager's Grove, and then Vanderbilt Park. And eventually became the Tuscola. Vanderbilt donated to the county, and it became the county of Tuscola Vanderbilt Park. And I've got an old map right here, the original one. Right up in the center of it, it's got 30.97 acres. That's where the park was. It's right in the center of the map. But that was 1835. And this one is 1840s. And it's got Quantico, and you can see Quantico, it's not right at the river, at the mouth of the river, because it was actually called Quantico. This area in here was called Quantico, and right where this name goes, it goes right to the park. So that was basically the Chippewa Fishing Village. So the park was a Chippewa Fishing Village. There's a lot of history there that you can capitalize on and draw people into the park. That's significant. So that's what I've got on the park.
So I want to thank,
This ain't a matching grant or nothing, it's just a $5,000 grant that they offer.
so this, if they're asking for up to $5,000, according, and I thank Mark for putting all this together. So if you ask for less than, or up to $5,000, it's not a matching grant. So, so it is a reimbursing grant. So we will have to spend the money first and then get reimbursed according to the information that we received on it. So we can ask for up to $5,000, and then we reverse up to that if we get the grant, so.
And we determined from estimates and stuff like that from the Greenways, Catherine Greenways, that their sign, something like that sign, the same people would be doing it. And there was under 5,000 before, but it's a new sign, so it might be just a little bit over 5,000.
So we have to look at some of that information, so that's part of the things that we'll look at going forward is, checking the prices and things according to your policies, so. Well, thank you for that, Mark.
So questions on the grant, application?
Yeah, it's all written up now.
Just that, Chairman, is this a request for approval to proceed with the grant, or
Yeah.
is that what you're thinking
Yes.
Yes,
with the grant application?
So there's really no cost. It may cost 100 or 200 maybe if we go over 2,000. That's it.
Go to the board.
CA? Either that or a motion, since it's a grant, but pleasure of the board with that, yes.
The motion on Thursday, let's do a motion on Thursday for that.
Or a motion, that's fine.
It's a grant, that's the only reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Chairman, is that
No, that'll be something that people can go into the park and they can read like their history of Vanderbilt Park or that area or whatever. That'd be kind of.
Yeah, pictures too.
does that come from the state? Is that a state grant?
Yes, it's administered by the state of Michigan, and you have to have a Sigma, which is actually is paid through the state, it's granted to the state.
That's what it is here.
I think it's administered by the Michigan Historical Society.
Yeah, thanks, Mark, for that.
Thank
Any more questions for Mark? Number 2 under new business, we'll stay with Parks and Rec. Commission request to remove members and advertise for more.
all right, so as part of our, when I have a full board of active members. So, we have a couple of members, one has had health issues, the other we just have never seen. So, and it's been more than a year, we haven't seen them, we contacted them, so it doesn't seem like they're interested in staying on the board. So we're asking for the commissioners to vote to remove those members that were requested in our minutes and to put out for requests for, we have 3 positions that we need to fill because we have like 3 members in use out of 7. So we'd like to have a full board, so. Is there any questions over that? Any other additional questions?
So I guess on Thursday, we'll put a motion together for that with the names that we're removing and with the request to, advertise for 3 more.
Good, yeah, sounds good.
Make, Kelly knows, the names that was being removed.
So thank you for your time for this. So we get this taken care of so we can get working on our parks boards.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you. Any more questions for Mike? All right, moving down to number 3. Planning Commission annual report. How do you start?
Morning, gentlemen. It's the annual report time again, and so we're submitting this for your approval and acceptance. Index on the first page. I'll try to make this as painless as possible. Section 1 is the legal structure for why we have a planning commission and our legal foundations. Section 2 is our membership. We are very grateful that we have a full board. Board has been working hard on their education. I do want to point out that Jane has received her Master Citizen training in 2024 and zoning administrator as well. And Matt got his citizen train at 1 level below master, but he's working on his next level. In section 3 on page 3, we had a full set of meetings last year. No special meetings were held. As you can see by 3.1, everyone attended every meeting or had an excuse for being either ill or had a work obligation. Section 4 is our legal responsibilities. All of those are as stated by law or as assigned by this board. Section 5 were the activities that we performed over the year, and we break those down into the master plan reviews, zoning and amendments, review of various township projects and issues. As you can see, there was quite a few amendments and ordinances flipping back and forth. Most of those were related to the PA 233 law that went into effect in November. Section 5.4 is your PA 116 report. You know, as we had 19 agreements in 2024 across 7 different townships. One thing that was rather notable, we did have 4 packages that were returned from the state for not meeting program requirements, but those did not come to the Planning Commission for review as they're supposed to. 5.5, we had 2 FOIA requests in 2014. Again, those were related to the PA 233 issue. I think whoever submitted those was just looking for legal information for their arguments. Didn't know to go straight to the township for that material. 5.6 were the topics that the Planning Commission reviewed and discussed in 2024. Kind of an interesting one popped up there. Airbnbs were quite an issue during the year, especially down around lakefront properties. So there was a lot of advising for how to deal with that situation, writing an ordinance, things like that to help manage that. We also did a lot of work looking at various natural resources topics, including lake management and conservation. We're probably going to do some more watershed type topics this coming year. 5.7 is your county development plan, just pointing out that that was reviewed in 2023 and submitted as a new document that will need to be redone in 2028. To the best of my knowledge, the county only has 8 ordinances. The only one that the Planning Commission is really involved in is that airport zoning ordinance, because that is a zoning ordinance. The rest are police power ordinances. 5.9 2024, we reviewed our bylaws, our policy, and our meeting quorum policy, updated all of those. 6 has your building code statement. So we just deal with the building codes and the Tuscola County Airport Zoning Administrator. Section 7 is your zoning board of appeals, airport zoning board of appeals activity, excuse me. Another cup of coffee. We include this in our annual report, so they do not have to do one on their own. They typically don't have a whole lot going on across the year. They did meet once, which is their required meeting in February. And your membership is listed there. They are in litigation. There are 2 active cases going on. Neither one of these should be of any surprise because they've been hanging around for a while. One notable one was the Michigan Supreme Court decision, and it was the denial of the 8 wind turbines to the west of the airport. That's where they have that proposed runway that's been on the books since 1999. That field is just extended out into Guilford Township, but they did protect the end of their airport. The other one was a new lawsuit that was filed in November 2024. Not really, don't have a lot of details on that because that did not go through one of their meetings. My understanding is that that's a refile of the argument against the Michigan Department of Transportation. This was where they, it's a double case because there's another plaintiff on there. That particular case, they wanted the Michigan Aeronautics Commission to do their own individualized safety check versus using the FAA. That original case had gone all the way up to the Supreme Court. As far as the Airport Association is concerned, both the Michigan Supreme Court said that the Airport Zoning Board of Appeals didn't have standing because they had their bite at the apple before the Michigan Commission got a hold of it. So I'm not really sure why it's being refiled, but like I said, there's another plaintiff on that. So it was probably just the attorneys went along with that. Just as a reminder, that legal action is not funded by the county. That's a private action. If there's any questions on that, I can go into more detail, but it pretty much explains it. Section 8 is the training that was done. Again, introductions to lakes and the administrator certification was done. And 9 is our goal accomplishment and what we hope to do for the next year. Pretty self-explanatory there. Anybody have any questions?
Any questions for Heidi on that? Thanks.
Put it on Thursday for a motion receive and file.
See it?
PA or motion?
We see that or?
I think you'd want to do a motion, but I'll defer to the clerk.
I think it's a motion.
I do too, but I don't have the standing to explain it.
We'll do a motion.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
For the
Thank
file.
you very much.
Thank you,
Yep.
thank you.
See you next year.
Because I know the last meeting, we done motions on that stuff because we forgot to
PA.
CA them for,
Yeah.
for the, so we had to do all individual motions, we forgot to CA it. But moving on to number 4, equalization report, Angie Daniels.
Doing the limbo this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, it's that time of year where we review our fresh batch of fresh new numbers for 2025. Ian's got a copy of the report. We'll go right to page 1 here. The only, I always list the assessors there. And we did have one change this year, Vassar Township. We did have Sherry Hickmott who took over. She also does Watertown Township, and she's doing an excellent job getting things under control in that township. So very happy with her work down there. Let's get right to it. So we're pleased we have completed another year of studies in assessment administration. This year, County Equalization conducted 857 appraisals in the agricultural, commercial, and industrial classes. And this year's residential sales study consisted of 943 arm's length transactions. So all this data used for the study comes from a 2-year study period, and that's from April 1st of 2022 through March 31st of 24. All appraisals, sales information, that's all compared to the 2024 level of assessment in each class within each local unit. And then each year, the study results are shared with the assessors and the Michigan Department of Treasury Property Services Division staff. It's reviewed, audited. We allow opportunity for comment. And then the studies are finalized on December 1st. So assessors then spend the next few months preparing their local assessment rolls for the coming year, and the results of which are summarized in this report. All local units came in this year at the statutorily required level of assessment. There were no units that required factoring. The study has already had a preliminary inspection by Property Services Division, and the data is ready to proceed to state equalization, which occurs next month. Let's see. Let's go right to the graphs and charts, which he already knows where the good stuff is. That first chart, change in SEV by class. The general summary this year is we're not seeing as much of an increase in most of the classes as we did last year. So things have started. We're starting to see certain areas level off. Just to give you an idea, last year's total SEV increase last year was 8.89%, whereas you can see this year we're at 3.51%. So still had some increases, but not nearly as aggressive as we've seen these last couple of years. And then if you scroll down to the taxable, which is, the meat and the potatoes of what we care about, you can see total increase was 3.05%. Closely in line with inflation. Let's go to the next page. And these are our standard, our standard charts that we use just to compare, real property. When you look at just the real property component and just the SCV values, you can see residential and agricultural are the front runners. As always, these really don't change a whole lot. If you scroll down to that bottom one is taxable. You can see the agricultural component does shrink a little bit because those values are generally capped thanks to PA 260. And on the next page, very similar, we're just looking at all property. So this is also throwing in personal property. So you can see the SEV comparisons on the top and then the taxable comparisons on the bottom portion of that page. And again, there you can see about the only change is the agricultural shrinks down. Its taxable isn't nearly as aggressive as its SEV. So, and on the next page, this is one that we've tracked for the last few years, where we look at win versus non-win, just to the personal property side. We've always tried to keep an eye on this, just because we do have a significant amount of our value in personal property thanks to the wind. So you can see that top line, the more orange line, that's the wind. You can see we're still generally due to depreciation of those wind assets. You can see that number does continue to decline. And then all other personal property is still showing a slight increase. I did take a look at some of the individual units just to see where that was, because each year we're kind of surprised with all the personal property exemptions. And I always like to look at that to see what that increase is from. And I see a majority of that was in Vassar Township. which is, generally a lot of marijuana related activity. Let me see here and then down on the bottom there, this is wind versus all property tax values. So this is kind of that summary of that top line is all property. So you can see, thanks to rising values, increased inflation, you can see that all property is still on a upward trend, but not quite as aggressively, like I said, as we've seen in the last few years. And then on the wind side, again, you can see that slight decrease, that depreciation in value. And I did take a look at those two numbers. As far as taxable value, the all property increased. It was about just over 105 million is what our taxable value increase was. Okay. The wind decrease was just over 34 million. So just to kind of give us an idea, I mean, inflation, we've been saying the last few years that inflation has kind of bailed us out as far as our concern of that depreciation of that wind. So that's kind of a relief. That's quite a difference yet. So on that next page, this just gives us the trend going back. I just go back 10 years, kind of shows it's been a pretty interesting last handful of years, as you can see by the chart. Residential obviously has been the most aggressive. Our commercial and industrial, we just don't see too much activity. You can see it stays pretty standard. We don't see any large increase or large decrease typically, unless we have a new project come in, some kind of economic development. Same thing. Yep. You can scroll down, thanks. Pretty much the same picture on the taxable side. And then if we go to page 10, where it kind of summarizes, just a couple more pages that will have the chart, which is a little bit easier to look at. And this chart, again, summarizes, you can see Columbia, Fairgrove, Guilford, those are all of our wind townships. So those are the townships that, especially on the taxable side, because of that decrease in the value of all those wind assets, that's why they're seeing that decrease overall in their tax base. And then even Watertown towards the bottom, I noticed that one's starting to see that one saw a little bit of a decrease in their SEV or assessed value as well, which is kind of interesting. We haven't seen that in a while, but that just kind of shows when I look back at what the study was projecting, that was the unit that their level of assessment was pretty close to already in line with what our study was stating. So they didn't have to do much of an increase. And in fact, overall, all their classes, they ended up with a slight decrease. And then I looked back at last year's chart. I mean, these values, we had values as high as 20% as far as increased on the assessed side, whereas this year, I think the highest one is just under 8% as far as assessed value. So again, we're starting to see things definitely slow down, level off a little bit. I know we still have the factors, especially with residential, we still have the issue of lack of inventory, things like that are still playing into home sale prices, so that will probably keep values up. But again, we're always interested to see once the real estate market starts ramping up again this spring, we always get interested to see what's going on. And I also remember one of this Echo, I think she was looking in the paper the other day and made the comment too, that how many foreclosure notices there were in the paper too. So that's something else that, we start to watch those things, and it's interesting to see what the climate is. So the next page, this one, again, not much has changed as far as who our top contributors are. Especially I always like to look at the bottom half of the chart, because this again is just, if you look at those top 6 contributors, those are all wind. And so I always find that to be just really interesting. You can see, you go from Tuscola Wind, their total taxable just over 39 million, and then it drops down to under 10 is the next highest. And then that 19.48%, those top 10, that's what they're contributing to our overall tax base. So that's always just really interesting. And it's just kind of, you always think back, you're like, gosh, had we not had wind development, what would we look like as far as our tax base? It would look a lot different. So, love it or hate it, that's what it has produced. So the remaining reports in the report are the 4024, the 4046, and these are just the very boring reports. Those are the ones that just literally summarize all the values. The 4024 is your assessed and SEV values. The 4046 is just those taxable values. And then I also throw in each year parcel count report just for informational purposes, in case anybody's curious. So now I just summarized by saying this report is submitted for adoption and signatures. And as always, we thank everybody. I thank Cody, our GIS. We love working with him and love our GIS system. Really appreciate our local units. I'm very appreciative for the assessors that we have in this county. We have a really good batch of assessors. So I'm very, very fortunate and very thankful for that. And at this time, I'll take any questions if anyone has any questions.
Chairman, I have a question if anyone else has. Angie, related to and this is my yearly question when you present, related to ag, what does it look like? What did it look like in 24? Did ag lose to residential, or did it hold its own, or what did you see? Are we losing ag property?
I know the 1 year I literally, got down to the nuts and bolts for you. And no, generally speaking, and I think a lot of that we can all witness. We don't have a lot of development. We don't have a lot of new construction. We don't have new subdivisions going in. We really don't have much gobbling up any ag ground, generally speaking. And there's so much money that's a lot of our economy, agriculture. So you don't see those farmers giving up farmland easily. So.
Well, it's always good news, but I was just reflecting back on the planning report that Heidi gave in one of the ordinances, the Farmland and Open Space Preservation Ordinance of 2008, which is probably considered a bit moot at the moment because of the legislation. And yes, I summed that up quite succinctly then. Okay.
I guess the only other concern, solar, I know there's a lot of potential projects in the works. I mean, that's probably, has the potential of taking more years of production than anything right now. So if we want to be honest, so.
No further questions, Chair.
Anybody else on the board have any questions for Ms. Daniels?
And as always, if anyone has just wants some more information on anything, our door is always open. So feel free to stop in.
Thank you, Angie.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
commissioners.
Move on to number 5.
We'll put a motion on
Oh,
Thursday to accept the
oh, forgot to do that again. Got you know last meeting, Brad.
I'll keep reminding.
Yeah. Okay, so we got that, right?
Got it.
Okay. Number 5, presentation of mosquito 2024 annual report. Larry Zappa.
Morning, Larry.
Warren.
Commissioners, I won't go through the whole report for you, but I do have a highlights page I'd like to present to you this morning. I'll start out with last season, our department employed 4 full-time positions and 21 seasonal positions. There were 4 new employees trained and certified before the season began last year. The pesticide certification testing for all new employees were provided by Delta College last year in order to meet the requirements for the Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development. We began our season on April 1st. The field technicians treated 2,458 flooded woodlots last season during our larvicide portion of our season. This included residential properties, campgrounds, golf courses, our parks, rail trails, our gun clubs, and our conservation clubs. On April 19th, we had Covenant Healthcare Services provide a free Stop the Bleed trauma class in our facility for all of our employees to be trained in the event of an emergency. The county's 9 sewage lagoons were treated bi-weekly last season. The locations, these locations are known to be major breeding sites as far as disease detection and population. Weather conditions, they always play a key role in our treatments. The county received 21.81 inches of rainfall last season. In 2023, we received 25.88 inches of rainfall. The month of September last year was very dry. We only received 1 inch of rain during that time period. Looking at the numbers, 19,623 mosquitoes were collected this season. We tested 103 mosquito pools for disease. All test results indicated no positive test for the West Nile virus. 1 bird did test positive for the West Nile virus. All other mosquito-borne related diseases were undetected related to mosquito pool testing. The Aedes quadrimacularis linked to the West Nile virus and the Coquiltidia perturbans linked to the Eastern equine encephalitis were the most predominant species collected this season. This season, we added 150,360 miles to our truck fleet. We continued routine maintenance and repairs on all of our vehicles as well as our mosquito equipment. We maintain membership with the Michigan Mosquito Control Association and the American Mosquito Control Association. Looking forward to this season, our 2025 program plans, all of our permit requirements from the Michigan Department of Environmental and Great Lakes and Energy and the Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development have all been completed and approved. We did attend the Michigan Mosquito Control Association conference back in February, and that was held in Traverse City, Michigan this year. We attended the Technical Advisory Committee meeting held at Bay County Mosquito this year. We have implemented our first phase of our new GIS truck fogging software from Frontier Precision. And once again, I'd like to say a big thank you to Cody Horton, as well as Ian and his team for helping us with this project, and a very big shout out to Marianne Daly. Marianne is our office assistant, and she has really taken this project under her wing, and I'm so appreciative that she's there to help us through this. We did purchase 5 new electric backpack foggers this season. We will continue our broad species surveillance throughout the county this season. We'll continue our public outreach plans. This includes all of our schools, our newspapers, brochures, and updates on the county website. We will also continue trapping and testing and surveillance throughout the county during the entire season. Currently, our seasonal staff has returned as of March 31st, and they will be out there treating all of our flooded woodlots throughout the county as well as our private residential properties as well. So here we go. It has begun. Yeah, we're very grateful to all of our returning technicians this year. We just had one that didn't return, so. Other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for Larry?
Chairman, I have a question. Is there another question? Larry, and related to agriculture, are the no spray zones increasing, decreasing, or staying the same?
We're seeing a slight increase in those as far as organic farms. Yes, it seems like every year I would say on an average, we probably add 10 to a dozen every year. I think that number went slightly down in 2023, but for the most part, we do see regular increases in those organic farms.
Do you think that's real, tied to more organic certifications being approved, or just folks deciding to have no spray? What do you think?
Well, I think it's I think it's more organic farms being approved. I will tell you that our organic farmers work with us, and they are so patient and understanding about what we're trying to do out there, and we're always keeping them aware, and there's really good communication between us. So it makes a big difference in making our job easier in what we do, for sure.
I know from the end of being certified and being audited every year, that's a typical question that you get, and you always have to point out the signs, and yeah. I don't know what that means to you down at the office if they ever check with you, but I know on the farms around us that it always comes up.
I know we've, I actually have, two of our technicians out there, checking signage right now, and we go through a lot of signs a year. This new software system we're putting into place, is really going to help us with that as far as, determining property boundaries and where exactly those signs should be. So that new software has really been great for that. So we're grateful to have it, for sure.
Yeah, thank you. No further questions, Chairman.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Larry? All right. Thanks again, Larry.
All right. Thank
We
you.
will,
Thank you, Larry.
Put a motion on this sucker. Move on to number 6, Sheriff's request for a new optic system for Sheriff's Office.
Morning.
Mr. Robert Baxter.
Morning.
So at the Sheriff's Office, we're looking at replacing the sighting system for our sidearms for the road patrol. And we're interested in moving to the red dot sight system. It's basically kind of like a hologram with a red dot type of picture sight where you can keep both your eyes open and focus on a target and have a red dot projected on through this sight. In order to get that sight, this is a project that's been going since last year, so quite some time they've been looking into it, but it's not feasible to put this new sight on the weapons that we have because there's a different buildup on the slide that has to be achieved. So they did go back and forth with different vendors, and they looked at different options, and to have it done, apparently it was pretty close to the same cost as buying a gun with the setup already on it. So what we've come up with is to obtain the sights that we want, the sidearm would have to be replaced, and along with that is a holster, ammo, there's training time, there's transition time for the officers to practice, all that sort of thing. We did obtain two, my understanding, there's 3 vendors in the state for that particular firearm with the optics. We received 2 quotes that offer law enforcement pricing on those, and we're looking at Vance's quote as the cheaper quote, who actually is the one that we do most business with. So with the firearms, the optics, the needed accessories for the holster, adapters and such, we're looking at $40,987.50. I've added some ammo and let's see. At 11,022 and I'm sorry, that's 11,022 is for the overtime. The original 40,987.50 is for everything needed for the firearm. So we're asking to have the money transferred from the fund balance over to the guns and ammo fund in the overtime fund. Did I explain that effectively, what we're trying to do? Do you have questions?
The chairman, I'm just curious, and Bob, on these particular holsters and sidearms, are they smaller than the current ones with the new configuration? Or are they larger, heavier? Is there any?
It'll be the same model. It'll actually be slightly bigger because of this sight is considerably bigger than a regular sight, so it requires a special holster for that.
So it was more expensive to buy. I guess it was cheaper to buy a whole new weapon system rather than replace like a slide on it.
The cost difference is just minimal. So, in order just to get a manufactured piece instead of housing it out and trying to have those pieces mended together, just made more sense just to get a quote for the complete setup.
Chairman, another question about what fund did you say that would come out of?
Our fund balance.
Oh, yeah, out of your fund balance?
Yeah.
The road patrol fund now.
Correct.
Okay. And then in a motion to approve this, that would have to be included to move that. From the fund balance to whatever you decided to move it to earlier. Okay, no further questions.
We do that motion on Thursday? Or a motion on Thursday?
Can't do a motion today.
I know that, but for
Could do
Thursday,
Friday. Thursday works.
I just thought I'd get ahead of you for you forgot.
And one more question. What's the lead time once you initiate this?
I would say, we put the order in, it sounds like they have stuff ready to go, ship out.
So available when?
Yep.
Okay. No further questions.
Any other questions for?
No, sir.
You got that, Shelley?
Gotcha.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, appreciate it. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Move on to number 7. Bevo kit request, John Ramirez, Dispatch Director.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning. Morning.
This morning, I'm coming before you to ask for a backup system to keep 911 viable and mission ready for what we do for our citizens of Tuscola County. With moving forward with the PSB building and a backup dispatch center, unfortunately, Tuscola County is too small to get our 911 phones provided by the State 911 Committee. So it's up to us to find how we would sustain operations if something were to happen to our current building. And the examples I want to use is examples that we've unfortunately already had to work through, whether it be a water main shut off, a sewer shut down, power outages. We were able to do that through some quick and extensive collaboration with Mike Miller, Kenny Martin, and Steve Anderson. But if something serious had happened to dispatch, we would have to cease operations and turn over our operations to another county, which currently would be Sanilac County, who is also understaffed. So the surrounding counties that border us are all understaffed. They're short, just like we are. And what this solution would do would give us the capability to not only go to our backup dispatch center, but anywhere in the state of Michigan, really nationwide if we needed to. But this backup kit works with Starlink to provide mobile services or network services to Mevo phones, which are the current backup system to 911 in the entire state of Michigan. So with this phone system, the initial cost would be $8,850. And then to continue that annual legacy cost, it would be $5,520 for the second year moving forward. Every 911 director dreams of having a brick and mortar backup dispatch center. Honestly, quite frankly, it's just too costly to maintain a separate dispatch center altogether, which is why we've been, absolutely blessed to move into a closet downstairs next door. But we still have to have the other things to make it mission ready. And this is the biggest one. With this phone system, we can bring in 911 rings to that location without passing it off to another county that's understaffed and may not be able to handle the additional workload. So, did I explain it well enough? Do you have any questions for me?
Chairman, I got some questions. So if you go from 911 on the hill to over here to the new building,
Yes, sir.
you can't transfer the phone?
There's nothing to transfer it
Nothing
to.
to transfer to?
Yeah. And so with this kit, we would now have something that we can transfer it to. One of the things that I'd wanted to do in the past is create a dispatch position for large events within the county, such as the county fair or the Pumpkin Festival, where it's a week-long event or a weekend. That way we can have one person dedicated to the medical calls, to the police, situations during that. And it's just one person dedicated to that. This would do it. As far as how often would we use it? My strategic plan is to do it once a quarter, to have a complete 24-hour shift run out of the operational backup center. That way they stay accustomed to the primitive setup. Because currently, as Commissioner Vaughn was nice enough to come out last week, it's extremely technology heavy and kind of going to austere conditions. You're not going to have everything available to you. So you need to be able to work with truly backup systems or minimal systems. And this would allow us to continue to maintain operations.
I got a follow-up question.
Yeah.
Where are we getting the money?
Glad you asked. So we do have a fund balance currently that we are going to use. And again, this is a conversation that we need to have. We have the money currently. We have the money for a year or two, but again, to me, this is part of operations. This is another cost to 911. It's not something that we can, in my opinion, do without. If our response is to, if something happens, we'll just transfer it to another county. My response would be to that supporting county is how are they going to do it? Because I'll be quite honest, we don't practice. We're overflow for Bay and Saginaw County. We have never been in conversation as to what would happen if those situations arose. I don't know their units. I don't know their stations. I don't know what they do. And that would be a similar situation if we transferred calls over to Sanilac County. The biggest translation or consideration that I would have is they're not on the state radio system like we are. They're on UHF. So that's a major problem, and this is something that we need to talk about moving forward. So I do have the money to support it currently. But again, that's my opinion that it's operational.
Have we had to do that before? Yes. Have we had to turn on our 911?
We not complete operations, our overflow has. And what does happen in those situations is they call us. The phones ring over to Sanilac. They know that things must be bad over here, but again, they don't have a way to log our calls, to dispatch our calls. So they end up calling on our administrative line to give us those 911 calls. So has it happened to shut down a dispatch center? Not during my tenure. And I can't speak for my predecessor, but I can tell you that I've worked very hard to not do it through various things with like our generator upgrade, our UPS replacement, and things like that. So does it happen? Yes. Probably several times a year. All it takes is a bad crash, to be honest with you. A significant crash at 24 and 46 where we receive more than 6 911 calls, it's getting rolled over to another county. So it doesn't take much to overflow our system.
I guess I'll kind of turn over to the finance.
Mr. Chair, I got a question.
Yeah.
When we planned on moving over to the People's State Bank building, was this in the quote for that room?
This equipment? No.
Yeah. Why?
Honestly, I didn't think it would happen. This is a 911 purchase. The project, I was brought in on the project later after it had already started. And moving forward, I'm bringing this to you because of the amount of the cost. The other projects as far as, or equipment for the project, I believe fall under the amount that I need board approval for. This is the biggest one and it has a legacy cost.
Thank you. Nothing else.
Chairman, I have a question for John and the board, I suppose. I think when we look at things like this, there's two areas of the county that I think that the board would all agree that are most fragile in terms of situations like the ice storm up north and things that are unplanned. And anything that you mentioned, you get over 6 calls, it gets truncated over to another county. It's much like our systems that we have in place prevent hacking and our security. I mean, if we don't have that, it sits there until we need it. But obviously, we know from Ian's perspective, he doesn't share everything that's getting hit on. But my concern, circling back, John and the board, is that unplanned. I mean, the friends that we have that were from upper mid Michigan who just went through this ice storm, and they're still trying to recover. How would this have it? I don't know exactly from the 911 centers up there because everything is at the grassroots. So there must have been a lot of failures.
Yes.
So, and it's still that way. They're still posting for anybody with a chainsaw sometime. So this is one of those things I think we need to weigh in a sense that for backups, just in case. If it hit Tuscola County, if that would have hit Tuscola County, I'm not sure what that effect would have been, but it would have been more than 6 or 7 calls at a time overloading. So just relating it to the security of the county and to its residents, this is more of a impact to the residents, and it really fuels everything that our sheriff's department does in the communication. I'm just trying to grapple this.
It's truly
because this is a finance issue, but it's just sort of one of those things that you really have to weigh heavily because you may never use it, but then again, you may really wish you had it at a particular time. So I just wanted to put that out there in the sense that we seem to be a little more than vulnerable depending on the circumstances that we haven't incurred yet to the maximum, but something to think about.
It's certainly it's sustainability of operations is why I'm here. When we were going through our UPS replacement, we used this exact kit, and we are small. So I guess the background is, in order for the state 911 committee to come in and install with PFN this kit into our dispatch center, we have to have 8 dispatchers. I currently run with only 2. So, it's a shortfall, I think, on the state's level of us. We're not much different than Sanilac or Huron. There's 2 working in each of these centers, but yet if something were to happen, we're SOL. We're up the river here, and we would have to turn it over to someone larger. I can tell you that a few years ago, we had a significant rainstorm, and we had close to 43 roads that were washed out. We had campers stranded in Wesleyan Woods that we had to evacuate. We have taken measures from that lesson that we learned as far as storm protocol and how we deal with these emergencies with our other first responders. But you're correct. If we had something significant, we would have no way to assist our citizens in their time of need. This kit, when we back to my UPS replacement, this kit was brought to us from PFN from Marquette, because the counties that have this dispatch center backup locations, they are large enough to have these kits provided for them. So, we purchased this, and let's say another situation in a small dispatch center where they have a UPS replacement needed and they need a kit, I'm willing to loan that out, as a dispatch center up north was able to loan us their kit. They did not charge us for it. This is us helping others in this kind of the same time of need. And I guess that's where I'm at. I've identified the vulnerabilities and weaknesses of our 911 services to citizens, and I just need to know operationally how to move forward.
So what else is, to get it going this year, we can use fund balance. To get it going this year, then the follow-up of the next year, we'll have to just take a look at it, how to fund the $5,500 left.
Yeah.
So to get it going, the pleasure of the board is he wants to transfer from fund balance to get this up and running, and then we got we're going to have to look at it every year when we come to our budget.
I do have plenty of money forecasted in my capital outlay that this was in my 5-year plan that I had given to a previous controller. But I just didn't anticipate our move being provided to us so quickly. So I'm just kind of moving it up a year or 2.
But so
It's a good point, Chairman. On that note, I'm first time I've seen this other than what was sent out. So my statement earlier was just one that I wonder what if. But realistically, we will be getting a quarterly update financial report. We get 4 a year quarterly, which, to answer your question, that would give the board hopefully a basis to understand more further what we're looking at in the future, especially with legacy costs in terms of down the road. I think that's what you're referring to, because I have no clue other than what our past administrator projected. So with that all said, I think it's weighing between the need or potential need versus, as you just said, the legacy costs and where are we going financially. The only thing I see in the future that was mentioned by Angie earlier was the fact that there are some potential windmill opportunities in the future, but I have no understanding of what's going on other than the Elkwood, which we probably all have heard about by now since it was published. But at any rate, just a few comments on it. Back to you.
And
again, that might be something too, like you said, we know that the money's on the fund balance right now to do this. And they said, you got your final capital outlay plan, and that's stuff that Going forward, we just gotta look at all the different scenarios, how to fund this. If we as a board think this is a necessary need for our 911 and our citizens. to Have this, you know,
And I got
Go
one more.
ahead, sorry.
I got a question. What's the turnaround time?
I can have it within a week or two.
So John, do we get into a contract with this $5,000?
It's, we're already in contract with PFN, which is the state 911 provider.
Okay.
It's just as long as my understanding is that as long as you're going to keep that Starlink, which is their only provider for capabilities, as long as you're going to use that into the future, that's what your annual payment would be.
there's no grant opportunities or for anything like this.
Not that I have found. Obviously I'm still looking. This is, again, it's a tough situation. Because most people don't look at, you already have a 911 center. What do you need two for? And it's not a matter of having two. It's a matter of what happens to our one. So I have not found any grant applications yet that would suffice for this. The new grants that have just dropped are for traffic safety. I don't know how I can tie this into traffic safety yet, unless I really do some creative writing. Obviously I'm looking for it. But in my opinion, this is much like insurance. I hate paying car insurance. I hate paying house insurance, but until I have that crash and then I have to cash in on it, it's certainly worth its penny then. But I respect whatever decisions you make if we talk about this future.
Just a question, how about MMRMA? Would they have something like that? I don't know.
I will double check the list again.
Oh, pleasure of the board.
Motion.
Put a motion together for Thursday, Adam.
Chairman, so we're gonna put a motion. John, may I ask another question?
Yeah, sure.
John, let me go back to it. I was just moving ahead here for a moment. It has 4 radios, right?
Phones, yes.
Or phones?
Yep.
So just for a scenario, let's say the 911 center went down the tower or something. If you've seen the picture of the tower up north, you'll understand what that, I don't know what the tower was for, but it was collapsed. You'd be able to carry on the capability, but what is the max? You have 4 phones. We're avoiding passing the calls to another county. Where does this take over? What's the limit of it? As much as 4 phones can handle 4 people, or?
Yes, I mean, this has the keep in mind, we're only running with 2 currently.
Correct.
So we do have the ability to still stack calls. And this would give us the opportunity to, just like we do now, if things start to go wrong, Deputy Director Tabar goes out and starts working the phones, calling utility companies, things like that to help out so the dispatchers can maintain taking the 911 calls and dispatching the first responders. That way a third person can do all the extra things, whether it's tow trucks, utility companies, DTE, Thumb Electric, gas, whatever they need. This kit would still provide, through a satellite connection, everything that we do currently.
You just carry on.
Carry on.
Okay. Thank you.
I mean, in the realm of dispatch, what else are we looking at? Well, we know the building has a generator. We've already taken care of a rooftop antenna over there. We will have to relocate some radios because we won't have our desktop radio system over there. So they'll be working on multiple radios to talk to everyone. And then the next purchases would be our CAD computers that we purchased directly from Clemis, which I can't imagine more than $1,000 for them. And then the phone consoles. So it's everything we're looking at.
No further questions.
And you got something you want to add over here?
Yeah, John, you said this is gonna run off the Starlink connection?
Yes.
Are they taking care of that subscription service, or is that something that's gonna be put on you?
That is through PFN, and we subscribe through PFN with this.
Okay, we gotta put that on the roof, right? We're run it down through our Chase. We got it.
So I don't know how that'll work with the new building. I can tell you that when we use this in our building, it worked flawlessly in the middle of the dispatch floor.
So for internal,
Yes,
we need to test it. Make sure.
we can. I mean, and I'm certainly willing to put one on the roof.
That's it.
So John, you
That
plan on,
affect you there?
Just wanna make sure I understand.
so you plan on using this like a quarterly to make sure this stays in backup situation over
Yes,
across the
sir.
street?
It does us no good to buy something and put it in the closet
Right.
and never use it and hope and expect it to work properly when it is needed. So it is my contingency plan to do it once a quarter, actually have staff work it, staff it, and utilize it.
Mr. Chair, in that motion, can we make sure that it's stated that comes out of the fund equity? And that we're gonna look at, okay,
Yeah, we have.
I just want to make sure.
Yeah, and
Thank
and
you.
again, that's what we look at now. Did you look like $8,500 again, starting with $3,500 a year? On something that may never be used. Right? I mean, it's,
I hope it doesn't.
yeah,
honestly.
well, I understand that, but that's, so, that's, yeah, so that's something we have to think into as well. I mean, but if it's used once, when we talked about this before, if something happens one time, it's worth it. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
So,
It's much like the ice storm across the counties. Is Sand Lac or whatever was one of those counties that had the same pit. We're all in the same. There's nobody to transfer anybody to.
right.
Well, I think like John says, it's just like insurance. You don't need it until you need it.
Well, right, but I just want to make,
Yeah.
that's something, that's cost and legacy cost that for the county that may have said it may never be used.
Yeah.
And, but it may, so you don't know, but we'll put motion together for it on Thursday, Ellie, and where the money's transferred and we'll have it ready on Thursday, Joe.
Chairman, I have another question. Is there any surrounding counties have this? I mean, like Huron, Sand Lac? I mean, you said, no, not Huron, but
No one around here uses something like this. That's why when we needed it, we actually had a worker from PFN drive it here from Marquette. So
Lapeer must bounce off and somebody else that theirs goes down.
yet they will have to do the same thing. They will wait on PFN to deliver one of these kits. And this kit is it's same kit that I've traveled with the Secret Service for years. It's a Pelican case, hardened, flight approved. It's protected. In this case is everything you need to whip up operations. It's got the Starlink connection, the 4 phones, the modem, all in one kit, similar to the radio kits that we have if we have like a Midland search and rescue come down and they don't have our radio channels, we have a cache of handheld radios that we can give them so that they can maintain communications with everyone on scene.
And I encourage everybody to, down to Thursday to look up, what we're purchasing here and find the ins and outs about it. Make sure you're all comfortable with what it will do for us and stuff,
Yeah, if you need more information, I can get that for you as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, move on to number 8. Roca Property LLC second amendment to commercial lease agreement.
I'll see Carmen here. So Carmen, from Meritage reached out to me to let me know that they're, now the resident agent for Roca Property LLC. So Meritage is now the parent company of Roca LLC, for lack of a better word. So she would just they requested to have the rent check made out to Meritage instead of Roca. So it's no change to the contract amount or longevity, just merely name change.
Did we receive anything from Roca to that effect?
No, but we received a documentation stating
Oh.
that Meritage is the resident agent for Roca.
CA that?
Well, I would do a motion on that.
Yeah, I think I would do.
It's always great.
Sorry, buddy. I don't want to make one decision around here.
You did, make a motion out of
You
it.
All right, let's put a motion together for that.
Thank you, Commissioner Bardwell. I was ready to say it. We're picking on, we're the finance guy, come on.
I know.
You may want to find us in the future.
Okay, we'll move on to that. We'll go to number 9. We're gonna go to the travel meal policy that we talked about. Who's gonna handle this? Andy,
Thank
handle this, or is that?
We're gonna tag team it.
We're gonna- You know, we had that discussion last Monday, you know, from the meal policy brought up by the sheriff. And we said we put on today's agenda for discussion and look at it. And we have looked at the policies. And we're pretty lenient here. You know, if you look at the counties around us, yeah, they don't pay for anything outside the county. They allow you a breakfast stipend, a lunch stipend, and a dinner stipend. We don't give you 1 month. And these are everybody that we checked with. So there's a lot more discussion, but I think the girls can take it off better here of what they found out and, you know, for discussion.
So, but at your request, this is for discussion only. Angie and I reached out to Huron County, Sanilac, and Lapeer County, just to look at their travel policy. And that's what you all have copies of there. We were waiting on Friday to get the last of it in. And as Commissioner Vaughn just said, we're actually extremely lenient in our travel policy comparatively to these counties. We have the highest value we have that we allow, which is not what we were looking for. We were just looking to reach out to these surrounding counties to find out what they do. We also reached out to find out about training, and Commissioner Vaughn was actually in my office when Nathan Romsky returned from the call. Regarding what do they do for the sheriff's department, for clerk's offices, for training, just training in general that might be within the county area. So I put him on speakerphone, but he did send a follow-up email, and it says roughly they do not cover expenses for departments which are not open to the public. It's a very touchy subject since it is taxpayer dollars. What they do, because I said to them, what do you do? We're trying to find a happy medium. We're trying to figure out, to Sheriff Robinson's point, what could we do differently? He said, for meals and training for the sheriff's office, they're typically paid for out of an account that the officers all contribute to. So the money is not the responsibility of the taxpayer. However, the account that the sheriff's office participates in, they do $5 a month. That is their agreement through their union and their sheriff's office. Also, I asked Nathan regarding like the clerks training. He said if the clerks association is not paying for the meal, then typically they do a potluck or they bring their own lunches. Now, unfortunately, Nathan was the only one who did return my call, unless someone did return Angie's call, I'm not sure. So Sanilac is the only one that I have to compare to regarding a larger training like Sheriff Robinson referred to. So this is just only for discussion and informational purposes and the potential of looking at our travel meal policy if we want to mimic counties around us. Like I said, we have the highest meal rate, and we are the only ones that have an entire meal rate. The other ones have from this time to this time, you get so much for breakfast. From this time to this time, you get so much for lunch, and of course, dinner. None of them allow debit cards. It is a reimbursement only. All 3 counties do not allow expenses to their debit card. So that is what I found at the, you asked me to look into it. I don't know if Angie has anything to add or if there's any further questions, but of course, that's all for your review and discussion.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do we know how much money we spent on our debit card last year for meals? It comes out of the taxpayers' money.
Yes. I did a write-up about that, every month, what the charges were total for the year. It was $6,509.84. That does not include payments that have been paid for meals through AP or your impressed cash. That is just on the debit cards.
So we allow 6750 a day
Correct.
Depending on the travel
Well,
area.
in a metro area,
in the metro area.
correct. We are 54 for anything local or that is not in a metro area.
So Angie, when you get these credit card things, do you see a breakfast receipt, a lunch receipt, a dinner receipt, or is it just all one, or how's that work?
It's usually just one receipt, whether it's, you know, a sit-down place or a fast food. You just have to go by the day, you know, if they went to breakfast, lunch and dinner, you gotta go, oh, on this date, they went to breakfast, lunch and dinner, or this date, they only did dinner. Yeah, usually it's a separate receipt per meal, which they have to stay within the limit of the 54 or 67.50.
Chairman, looking at, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
From past experience and years gone by, I don't travel for the county like I did with NACO, and I'm still a member of RAC, which if I did take the RAC trips, this would be a bump in the dark because, let me explain how it works. Typically when you're in NACO, other than, you know, board members, if you're serving on the board, you have the privilege that NACO pays for, MAC's board. MAC pays for all your travel, which is much different than this policy whatsoever. So in many cases, when you're in Washington and whatnot, we were, even though meals were provided, we were always challenged with meeting with congressmen, different individuals outside the north. And these are not Klan, some are not. And that was always a challenge. And that's how, fortunately, MAC would pick that up. Now, if you didn't have that at the county level, you'd be challenged. You're not going to get a $15 meal or 60. It's just depending on where you go. Fortunately, but unfortunately, today's the MAC conference. We can still register if you'd like to go. 7th. The board used to attend those in mass years gone by, and I wish they would today, or at least once a year, just do the network with all the other commissioners. However, I remember when this was debated in 23, and it was Commissioner Grimshaw, and there's a lot. Of course, there's been a lot of discussion. You might have been there, Commissioner Vaughn, as well. I'm sure you were. But I don't. Interesting enough, this is the first time with Sheriff Robinson that this has come up in terms of a challenge. Normally, the last challenge we had was when the MAC conference was in Frankenmuth, and it's less than 50 miles. I see some are 80.
Yeah.
And they couldn't stay there, but yet there was an inconvenience because a lot of things happened between first thing in the morning and late at night. That was another issue. So just looking from the past, from some of that experience, I'm not saying we need to change anything, but reflected in 23, we did realize that in certain Traverse City, usually where these conferences are, it's a bit of a challenge. And normally that challenge occurs when you have to be there. I don't think in this MAC conference, you have to be there the night before for the next day, but those where nothing's covered. You're pretty much stuck in at $20 at Traverse City. You couldn't even go through McDonald's. I don't know if you can today, maybe not. But at any rate, to add that discussion, I just wanted to provide some of the past and some of the challenges that were before us. But I think I'm the only one who probably did all that traveling back then that's still on board. Well, I know I'm doing one because we haven't had someone sit on the MAC board since Matt Bierlein, as I recall. So is the question today to raise the limit in some areas?
The question that was brought up, you're allowed to speak to it, Sheriff Hill, because I've been wrong all day on everything. You know, the question was that they talked about in-county meals.
Oh, in-
That's how this conversation started, you know?
The question was about in-county purchases. If we send our guys out of county, there's astronomical expenses with hotels and all that food and everything. This would be for an in-county purchase when we get 45 guys together in 1 week to do training. We felt that we would be saving a lot of money by doing these in-county trainings, paying for that versus sending people out of county.
I see.
And the department heads, we haven't met on it yet with Shelley. I know they were doing the audit last week and payroll, and I took vacation last week, so I was actually going to come to the board next time around. Obviously, she did some research to have this continue the discussion.
Because I made the comment that let's put it on the next one. So
Right.
they felt obligated to at least have something
Right.
to discuss.
See, some people listen to it.
Yeah.
So it's just continuing the discussion more, and like I said, this week I planned on, talking with the department heads and stuff. But originally, this was just for the in-county type things, not trying to change amounts, nothing like that.
I'm on board now.
And Sheriff, talk to your colleagues in the peers and say, okay, how does your county keep this going on? Because what we're finding, which I find very interesting, is the other counties that we talk to don't even give their department heads a credit card at all. They have to bring us receipts or bring them receipts. They will judge at that time if it was, under their guidelines or not, and the breakfast, lunch, and dinner, those are the two things that stuck out to me the most. They said, we don't allow somebody just not to eat all day and they have a $7 steak at dinner. Do we have a breakfast that we allow this much for breakfast? If you don't eat
And
breakfast,
that's
you
what
don't
we
eat.
originally had years ago.
If you don't eat lunch and you want to eat dinner, you still don't have $20 or $25 for dinner or whatever that figure. But there are different things that we have to talk about as a board, But so that's basically, where the discussion comes from, Commissioner.
Now I'm understanding a little more. I'll refocus it in, but I had a lot of challenges back then and outside. That's not what, one of the things that I've often wondered about, this goes back to private industry. If you do train, you mentioned training, you get people together, it's on their time, sometimes it's off time, like the clerk has to do training, whatever. And it's over a noon hour. I suspect today that they have to do a potluck or something because there's no pizza brought in, right?
Well, so that's what this would be so PPCT is the big one. That's the defensive tactics and everything that I discussed last time. This would be bringing in subs or pizza or something like that to that training. One of the things that I didn't mention last time around was, we don't allow weapons into those places, but if we break for lunch and everybody comes into Caro, everybody's going to put all their weapons and everything back on, and now it's another chance for breakdown and safety. We have to go through everybody and make sure there's no weapons, no ammunition, nothing that's going to hurt anybody before we can start that training. If we are able to just bring a meal in, a lunch, whether it be Subway or whatever, everybody can eat quickly and get right back to training, as opposed to having to break for, an entire hour to drive into town, to get food, to go back, do equipment checks again.
So in your case, the individuals are being paid while they're being trained. It's on county time, right?
Correct.
Okay. On the clerk's case, I just want to make an example here. The training, who pays the clerk? Does the township pay the clerk to go to training?
I'm sorry, I don't have that answer for you.
All right, because one is on the clock and one is off the clock. If it's on the clock, typically private industry will pay for a meal if it's on the clock, if they don't allow them to break and go through what you want. You have to make that choice. But typically they'll pay for a meal, some type of meal, brought in, for the reasons that you just gave. But from the clerk's perspective, and this is a conversation long ago, not too long ago, that the same concern existed in terms of how this is being handled. I'm not proposing anything, but I know that it's something that should be thought about and discussed further, how we want to go forward. Obviously, we'd be breaking new ground.
Yeah.
From other counties.
And one other thing I found very interesting too, as in the policy, if you have people who train, say they're from Saginaw County, Bay County, wherever they come, they won't pay for anybody that's a resident of that
Right,
county. You know what I'm saying? They will not spend taxpayer dollars from Tuscola County to pay for somebody from Saginaw
I'm saying,
to be in training into, you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
So there's a lot of things to look at, but I guess.
Well, there's a lot more to discuss.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We started the discussion. The girls got on the phone to get background on what the other counties do. But there's a lot of interest studies about it. I never thought of that,
So one thing we're still researching, and this is under Lapeer County, and I'll read this from their policy. Per both state and federal regulations. So we're looking. For the expense of a meal to be an allowable reimbursement, the meal must be incurred while the employee is traveling away from home on county business. The period of time must be sufficiently long to require a period of sleep or rest. This means an overnight stay. Employees who travel and return within the course of a normal workday are not considered away from home. This means unless the employee is out of the county for an overnight period of time, expenses for meals shall not be reimbursable. So I don't know what they're referring to in this state and federal regulation. We're trying to find it. That is Lapeer County. So when we started this, I was a little bit shocked that we were so far away from these other counties as far as what we do. And that all of their boards feel that because it's taxpayer dollar, you do not get a debit card or a credit card. It's a reimbursable policy. So now we were just looking broadly, but this is what we have, and Sheriff or whoever else would like, you're welcome to have a copy of this. Just, we are still waiting for a couple of answers, but that little blurb that Lapeer County has in there, I am not sure what they are referring to. So we are researching that. I'm not familiar with what they're
See if there's
referring
a
to.
state or federal regulation.
And I'm not familiar with it, correct?
Should be, there's a number, it should be easy to look at. It's got probably a statute, looks like.
It
when we
doesn't,
did it didn't.
It doesn't, no. It's
Reimbursement for
page
mileage.
4 of 5 in the back of your, in the back of your meals reimbursing. That is Lapeer County, so. And I believe Erica actually searched for it as well, because we're not sure what they're referring to.
If I may, there's a recommendation of what's considered a lawful expenditure.
Erica?
There is it's not a statute, it's not an MCL, but a recommendation of what is considered a lawful expenditure. So we're looking into that to see what is the current state of Michigan or GASB recommended lawful expenditure recommendation.
Okay.
It has to be, the previous one states that it has to be for the benefit of the taxpayer. So a training for the sheriff's department would
Could
be
the benefit.
considered
Right.
for the benefit of the taxpayer. However, the definitions are not clearly defined in the documents I found. So I'm continuing to research.
Mr. Chair, I think, just because we've just been given this, and I think,
We're just starting.
yeah, we need more time.
Yeah, we're just starting the conversation, and I'm sure maybe the sheriff might want to sit with the girls and talk about different things, but we're just opening up the conversation.
Another question, like state employees. Have you checked into how the state pays their employees when they're having training or anything like that?
We have not. This is just to open the discussion, and we, during audit, we grabbed a few counties that were around us.
Okay.
Just to start the discussion. I'm
Yeah.
not expecting any action, but
That might not be bad if we have somebody at the state we could call and find out.
Chairman, I just gotta, it seems awfully interesting to me that all these counties have a breakfast, lunch and dinner. They can't spend their $67.50 at one meal. You have to break it down. If you don't, I find that very interesting that you can only spend so much. So you don't get one $67.50 meal.
So, I guess more to come on. If somebody got anything further on it right now, more to come on and guys, your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I guess if we did change it to where you could spend this money in the county, like who would oversee that it was actually?
Angie does that now. I mean, everything comes in Angie. She looks at everything.
Okay.
She's the one that has to dispute everything. She goes and says, hey, you owe us money because this is not right.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah, she's the one that oversees right now.
Angie's on it.
I guess that's all I really had.
I had a little bit of experience with that past.
And you just paid it yourself.
So more to come on that. We're just getting started. Like I said, you guys, feel free to get with the girls, talk about anything. But
If I may, is there any further direction or anything the board would like us, besides what you said, Commissioner Cook, to research more? Like I said, these were the three that came back
No.
quickly. Conversation with Nathan was
yeah,
much appreciated, and I was glad you were in there, Commissioner Vaughn, so I could put him on speaker, but. Okay, we'll keep doing what we're doing then.
Thank you.
Thanks.
okay. Wait for our clerk to come back. For what? We lost our clerk.
No, we don't.
Probably not.
I don't see anything on their old business. That might have been on their old business. We just talked about it. It's like that wrong, but we'll move into finance technology. And with that, I'll turn it over to Commissioner Bardwell.
Chairman, I don't have anything under finance, to present. Is there anything under technology?
I do not have a technology. That's that.
Hearing that, no further reports.
Commissioner Lutz on building and grounds.
I have nothing unless Director Miller has something.
Nothing to do.
You awake back there?
I'm aware.
Okay.
Back to you then, sir.
Personnel, under personnel, let's do a mosquito abatement department request.
Now we need the clerk.
Right. Now we need the clerk.
Commissioners, I would just like to request this morning, permission to hire Chance Snyder and Gabriella Ramirez as new field technicians. Chance would begin working on April 14th, pending the results of a
We're gonna have to
background
have
check.
this in a minute, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Wait for-
Can we take a break?
We may have to.
Yeah, can we just take a break?
Take a break.
Sounds good.
Huh?
Nope, nope, yeah, I was gonna say, nope.
Oh, yeah, she needs to record the break.
Dang
Please hold.
Okay, we're under personnel there. Go ahead. No.
Alrighty.
No.
Yeah, I just would like to make a request to hire Chance Snyder and Gabriel Ramirez as new field technicians to mosquito abatement. Chance would begin work on April 14th, pending the result of a background check and a physical. Chance is simply going to be replacing a seasonal technician, a returning seasonal technician that accepted another job offer. So we'll just be filling a position, available position for that. Gabriella would be beginning on April 21st, pending the results of a background check and a physical. Gabriella would be replacing Jasik Sostak, who hired in this season, but unfortunately, we haven't heard from Jason. So that, yeah, so we've got a little void there. We need to fill with Gabriella.
Hired
So,
him, but they interviewed me.
yeah,
Hired him, but
it's
That
been tough.
requires them to show up.
It's pretty important. Yes. So that's all I have for you.
motion.
Motion on Thursday for that.
Yep.
Hey, got that one.
You had a question with this?
No, not a word.
No, yeah, that's smart. I from Mark.
That took care of 1 and 2 right there.
Yep.
I don't see anything else on their personnel.
That's it. Thank you,
So
Commissioner.
with that,
Thank you.
thank you, Larry. We can move on to other business as necessary. Anybody else got anything here? What wants to bring the board? How about public comment? Do we have public comment out there? Who wants to address the board this morning? Anything they've heard this morning or anything you want to talk to the board about this morning? It's public comment time. Time to do that now. You'd like to address the board? Not seeing anything, and for just record show that public comment was offered and we had no participants. But with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Support.
The move by Commissioner Cook, support by Commissioner Luce, to adjourn the committee of the whole meeting this morning. Thanks everybody for tuning in with us this morning. We'll see you again Thursday, and with that, all clear, say aye. Aye. The whole is adjourned.